Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my July reading wrap up. Yes, if you can hear it in my voice, I am in fact sick again. I was sick this time last month when I was filming my wrap up video and my TBR video and all of that, and my sickness has started coming back, which is so frustrating. I feel like I'm constantly sick. Anyway, the way I start these videos is always with statistics, so of course I'm going to do that like every other month. So in the month of July I read a total of 10 books, 7 of them are physical copies and 3 I don't have physical copies for. I actually had one DNF this month. I haven't actually had a DNF in quite a few months, but this one was definitely a soft DNF. That was Quicksilver by Kelly Hart. I started reading this because I saw it going like absolutely viral on TikTok, and even though I was enjoying it, I think I got like 20% of the way through. I just have so many books on my priority TBR and so many exciting vlogs, so I just don't think I'm going to get to that anytime soon. So I have just put it aside for now. Out of those 10 books, I read 3,979 pages, which is a little bit less than what I normally read. My average rating was 3.25, which is actually quite low. There was a couple of books this month that I absolutely hated, which I will get to. And out of the books that I set myself on my TBR for July, I read 3 out of those 6 books. I'm hoping that number is much higher next month because I actually let you guys choose my TBR for next month. And because of that, I'm hoping that I get all of them read. Speaking of my August TBR, I actually already have that video up on my channel, and it does include a massive giveaway for hitting 10,000 subscribers. So I thought that I would mention that here in case you haven't entered, because the prizes are really good if I do say so myself. Anyway, now onto the genre breakdown of these books. I read 3 romance books, 6 mystery/thriller books, and 1 fantasy book. So I was definitely like in my thriller/mystery era this month. I did film a video where I was reading only thrillers for a week, so I feel like that's why that number is so high. But yeah, with all of that being said, let's get into the 10 books that I read in the month of July. As usual, this will be in absolutely no particular order. I'm literally just going to go through the physical books and then I will talk about the books that I don't have copies for. So let's start off on a negative note, so then as the video goes it gets more positive. The first book that I read in the month of July was Hopeless by Elsie Silver, which is the last book in the Chestnut Springs series. I can't really say too much about this book without spoiling anything because, as I just said, it is the last book in the series. This one is following Bailey and Beau, and Beau was like the Eden brother that we all wanted the whole entire series, and now I do understand why people hated this book. I feel like either people loved this or hated it, and I just think this was absolutely awful. It was nothing like how I imagined Beau to be. I'm going to try to talk about some of the like things that literally irked me out in this book without spoiling anything. So pretty much it is a massive age gap. Like I think she was like 22 and he was like 35, so it was a massive age gap in this book, and I do not like age gap romances to begin with. But it's the fact that she was also like the most innocent person, like she was a virgin, he was her first time for everything, and I feel like that irked me out because of the age gap. And there was also this one scene, and this scene is what made me hate this book so much, and it was when Bailey was in the bath and she was shaving herself down there and asking him like what shape he wanted. And excuse my French, but I was like, what the fuck is going on in this book? This is so weird, so out of pocket. I was just not expecting it at all. And then he got in the bath and helped her, and I was like, nah, I can't read this anymore. I skim read the rest of the book from that scene because I was like, this is disgusting. Honestly, I hate this book more than anything. I gave it 2 stars, but I honestly don't even know why I gave it 2 stars. Like honestly, this is a 1-star read for me. There was not one thing that I liked about this. The next book is another book that I also did not enjoy whatsoever, but not for like an icky reason, but more just because I was very bored, and that was Little White Lies by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is actually part of a duology, I believe, so this is the first book in that duology, and I've said this so many times in my videos now because I did read this in a reading vlog. For some strange reason that I don't know why, I think I got it confused with another book. I had it in my head that this book was set in a ballet school where there was like a murder, but it's not. It's nothing like that at all. It was literally just following a debutante ball and a girl who was trying to figure out who her father was, and she was kind of like living with this estranged family that she hadn't seen in a very, very long time. And I don't know if it was because I was just coming out of a slump, but I just did not like this at all, and I'm definitely going to donate this book now and donate the second one, which I did also buy. Okay, those are the 2 lowest rated books, so now I feel like it goes a little bit more up from here. The next book I read was of course Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which is the second book in the Powerless universe. Third book if you include the little novella in the middle. I did read this in a reading vlog, and I talked in that reading vlog about how much I loved it and how it was everything I wanted and more. It was a 5-star read, but I did say in that video that it didn't give me the exact same feeling as Powerless, because Powerless was like a 6-star infinity read for me, and this one was just lacking something. And I did say that in that video, but still gave it 5 stars. But honestly, when I sort of thought about it a little bit more, I definitely do not think this was a 5-star read whatsoever. I would bump it down to 4 stars, which is obviously still a really good rating. But again, without spoiling anything, it honestly just felt very repetitive at some points. And I loved the dynamic between Kai and Peyton in this. Like, I loved their relationship, but I just feel like the scenes that we were going through, they weren't really getting anywhere. We were literally just doing the same thing over and over again, and for that I just didn't really love it as much as I could have. And it also just felt like the whole like magical power element was completely gone out of this book. Like, I don't think powers were really mentioned whatsoever, and like the resistance, like they were mentioned for like a little bit in this book and then they just were brushed over again, and I just was really confused. But I did still enjoy my time reading it, if that makes sense. It was only when I like kind of looked back and reflected on it that I sort of realized all these things that were missing. But I still loved it when I was reading it, and it did help me to get out of a massive reading slump that I've been in like this whole year. But then Hopeless ended up putting me back in a slump. I literally have not read a book in 2 weeks since I read Hopeless. The next book I have is Mile High by Liz Tomford, which is the first book in the Windy City series. I actually listened to this one as an audiobook because I just had a feeling that I was never going to be able to get through this physically because it is very long. And honestly, I feel like I made a great decision because it still felt really long to me, even in audiobook form. I've been putting this off for a really long time, and I know a lot of people say that this book isn't that good and the rest of the series is so much better, and I'm really hoping that's the case because honestly I just felt bored for a lot of this book, and I didn't really like our main female character. And this is not just me saying this, I've seen so many people say this about this book, but our main female character is plus size, and that is all she speaks about. Like, that is the only plot in this book. Every single 5 minutes it is talking about her being plus size, and I honestly just feel like it was way too much. It honestly just doesn't matter about the size of a character that much. Like, you don't need to say it every 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just said way too much, and I know a lot of people agree with me on that because I've definitely seen that opinion said before. And for that reason, I just feel like she was a little bit unbearable. But I also do like the story, and I liked the setting of the story. He was a famous hockey player and she was a flight attendant on his flight, so I did really like that dynamic of it. But in terms of everything else, it kind of just gave me the ick a little bit. The next one I read was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, which is actually a book that I read in that Reading Thrillers for a Week vlog, so definitely go and watch that video if you want like my opinions as I'm reading this. This one is following our character called Daisy Darker, and every single year they go to her grandmother's house for her birthday, and it actually falls on Halloween as well. And this year it is her 80th birthday, so there's like more family that's invited, and it's like a massive family event or dinner. And then on this particular night the grandmother actually passes away, and after that each person in the family starts going missing. I feel like the ending of this book had me absolutely shook. Like, I did not expect anything that happened at the end. At the same time, I didn't really like the ending. Like, I feel like it was a little bit dramatic and over the top and just not something that's very believable. In fact, it wasn't believable at all. Because like I enjoyed my time so much while I was reading this, it was actually set like hour by hour as well, and I love books that do that, so that definitely made me love it even more. So I actually ended up giving this one 4 stars, even though I didn't really like the ending of it, because I just had so much fun reading this. The next book I read was also in that video, and that was The Dare by Natasha Preston. This one is following a group of teenagers, and they are in their final year of school, and every single year there's like a muck-up day, we would call it in Australia, but it's pretty much where all the seniors do these pranks. But in this town, instead of them being like pranks, it's pretty much dares, and there's like this one ringleader guy that kind of like gives everyone a dare. And the past few years in this town, someone has ended up dying every single year because of a dare. And in this book we are following this group of friends who get told to do this dare together, and then everything kind of spirals from there. Not going to tell you guys anything else, but I didn't really like the ending of this. I felt a little bit confused about one of the characters who was supposed to be like a negative character the whole book, who it just kind of like turned around at the end. But yeah, I can't really say anything without spoiling anything, but I feel like if you've read this you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Honestly, it just kind of felt like the author was trying to make a really big twist, but it just didn't really make sense for the story. I actually really enjoyed my time reading this. I was very pleasantly surprised. I actually wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. The next book is the last book that I read in that like Reading Thrillers for a Week video, and that was The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. Okay, this one I have a lot of conflicting emotions about because it's actually following a husband and wife, and the wife is a lawyer and the husband gets accused of killing his mistress, but she still defends him. Like, she's still his lawyer, and even though she's going through like all these emotions, like why would he do that sort of thing, she's still like defending him in this because she thinks that he is innocent, and that's what we're going through the whole book. But because like I was putting myself in the wife's point of view, and I just feel like if that was me in that position, I would let my husband get accused of murder if he was like cheating on me. Do you know what I mean? Like, this lady is very strong, because I would never, I would be so, I'd just be like, okay, take him. So I just feel like because of that, I was a little bit like disconnected from the story, because I just didn't really see where the characters were coming from in that particular sense. But again, like, it was a really fun read. I read it in a couple of days. Like, it was very, very fast paced and easy to get through. So I did still enjoy it, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Now onto the 3 books that I don't have physical copies for. The first one is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Waugh. I did listen to this one as an audiobook as well. I love listening to thrillers as audiobooks when I'm like getting housework done and stuff. So that's why I end up listening to quite a few. For some reason, I honestly don't really remember anything about this book, even though I know I really enjoyed it. I believe it's following an in-house nanny who is hired to look after these kids in this like really massive house. I feel like that's the setting for like a lot of these stories where these things go wrong, and she's kind of like thrown into it straight away. Like, the husband and wife of these kids just go on a holiday straight away, like a work trip, and so she is looking after these kids by herself for the very first time, and one of the children ends up dead. And I believe we're following her story that she is telling to a lawyer. So she's like trying to get her story across to a lawyer in a letter, which is mentioned at the very beginning of the story, and then we kind of go back in time, if that makes any sense. So we're kind of like seeing if she's actually innocent or not. I did say on my review that I liked it, but I feel like I was left with a lot of questions, and I honestly just feel like the book was left like very abruptly. Like, I feel like there wasn't much of an explanation of what actually happened, but I still gave it 4 stars. So obviously I really enjoyed it still. The next book is What Lies Between Us by John Mars. Okay, my camera is gonna die. I will be right back. Okay, I apologize if the camera is in a slightly different position, but I just swapped out my battery. Anyway, I'm talking about What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This one was really, really weird, and it's another one that I listened to as an audiobook. Actually, I believe that I listened to this one as part of a vlog as well when I went to Sydney. So this one is following a mother and daughter, and we're getting both of their point of views, and pretty much the daughter is holding her mother captive in the top of their house, like in the attic, I believe, and we don't know why, and we don't know what has led to this, and we're kind of like going back in time and finding out what did lead to this. This is just another one where I did feel really confused, and it's another book that I didn't really like the ending of. I feel like I just wasn't satisfied with the ending of the book, and I just had so many questions again that were left unanswered, and that is one of the things that I hate most about thriller books, like when nothing actually adds up at the end. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I feel like this one wasn't as good as it could have been, and I feel like I've seen this being done so many times before that it just didn't really feel like anything new. So I ended up giving that one 3 stars. And then the last book I read was actually Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood. So, little backstory, I just honestly don't really like Ellie Hazelwood's writing. I've tried so many of her books now. I think this was like the 4th book that I've read from her, and honestly I haven't really enjoyed any of them. The only one that I sort of liked was Love Theoretically. I honestly, like, I say this every single time, but I honestly just feel stupid when I'm reading her books because they are just always talking about science. Obviously she writes romance books, but they're also centered around like women in STEM, and I just don't relate to that at all. I honestly just feel like I don't know what's going on for half the time, and this one in particular, I honestly don't really have much recollection of what happened yet again. I do know that the main male character and the main female character work for like these opposing companies, and all of this like stuff is coming out about both companies and how they're like doing each other wrong, if that makes sense. And I just didn't really like the plot of the story. I did really like the romance, and I did like the 2 main characters together, but I feel like the plot of the story was just really, really boring. I didn't really like the workplace vibes in this book. I did end up giving it 3 stars. I don't think that I'm going to read any other books from Ellie Hazelwood just because I just never seem to like them. Wow, I'm just getting more congested as I speak, but lucky that was the last book that I read in the month of July. I honestly feel like it wasn't the best reading month. I definitely didn't get any books this month that I actually really, really loved, which is really sad because I try to hope that I'm gonna have like a 5-star read every single month, but I just realized I actually did not have a 5-star read this month. But honestly, because of the books that I'm planning to read in the month of August, I do feel like that's gonna be a much more successful month for me, and I'm really, really hoping that it sticks to that. Hopefully I can get out of this like really really bad reading slump that I'm in because of Hopeless, because that book just honestly made me not want to read ever again. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you sort of got recommendations from this, even though, as I just said, I didn't really love any of these. Please let me know your opinions on these books if you have read them, because I would love to know if you feel the same as me. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one.